So yesterday I did a tier list video about recommended specs to play in the War Within for now on the beta, based on spec, design, the implementation of that design, the hero talents, what has changed between Dragonflight and right now, and multiple aspects that are not only tied to balancing but also just a fun aspect of the spec or the class. And a lot of people may choose specs between because of balancing or because of reasons like, for example, performances. But I normally how I choose my spec, because this is more of a video like how you kind of choose your spec going forward. How I choose my spec is between either the design, loving it, the amount of specs I can play on that class, because again, it's more efficient to play one class that has multiple specs that are good for you, or at least having fun with it, or like a one spec being like extremely good. And also, I would say viability in comms and how much variety you could have in gameplay, and just in general the role that you could play. Like if you're like a DPS main and you love playing a DPS, it's very hard to say, look, I'm going to main a healer. Sometimes what I do is like I main 4 or 5 classes pretty much. Although it's not really maining, I would say I play 4 or 5 classes and I main like truly 2 or 3. And then I have like multiple specs that are tied to that class. But generally, I play one spec per class that I play. And I would say like from those 5 classes, I have at least 1 or 2 specs that are like available to be played as a healer. Like for example, I play a lot of druid and mostly play resto druid, for example. So if you choose this class, pretty much you should like choose not really the balancing or the meta or whatever, because that is always going to change, especially since World of Warcraft has turned into a more proactive balancing game, which is very good. But they kind of need to keep it up, and not like season 3 or season 4 of Dragonflight, where they kind of said, look, I'm going to wait for AWC. You should not do that, Blizzard, but try to keep up the balancing and try to not do like very big swings. Try to do like incrementals that are very small, or like add stuff that weren't, like for example PvP talent. If you added a PvP talent, that could change the spec as a whole, for example. But overall, how I choose is between the implementation, the design, how fun it plays, how long can I play on the spec without getting bored. And I'm going to say that my philosophy has always been design over balancing. So it means that, for example, if I look for a melee and I really want to play melee DPS that is going to be quite good in arenas or in RPGs, I'm going to go for either a primary DPS. So there are a few classes, like roles between the DPSers. For example, you have a primary DPS, you have like a of DPS, hybrid DPS, support DPS, which you could be seeing, like for example, Retribution Paladin is really regarded as a hybrid support-ish DPS that is really good whenever you pair him in threes, for example, with a primary DPS, let's say a warrior, for example, or a demon hunter even these days, or even just in general a caster that can be turned into a primary DPS, like for example, demonology warlock. I try to say, look, if I want to play a melee DPS, and I want to play like a primary DPS, like something that has a mortal wound effect, something that is actually like often paired with multiple classes and multiple specs that do good together, a spec that has truly a bit of everything, truly has a lot of like possibilities to shine. I would be thinking between a arms warrior, fury warrior, a retribution paladin to a certain extent, maybe unholy DK, maybe frost DK if you're like more of a specialist, a havoc demon hunter, a windwalker. I would not really look about a rogue, but there is like one spec that I would maybe look if you want to really play a melee that is more of a primary DPS. It would be assassination rogue, for example, or survival hunter if you really want to specialize yourself into a specific gameplay into melee. Like for example, survival, you could be seeing it as a range DPS because it has a lot of range properties. And in general, how I would choose is between the class fantasy as well. Personally, I don't really care about Demon Hunter. I don't really love the lore of Demon Hunter. Find that the implementation of the lore was also a bit botched. But also, I never really liked how it plays. It has like a bit more buttons than before, but it's still like very bare bones. It does feel like Demon Hunter doesn't really do anything else except like huge damage, which is already something that most people love, but also like a lot of avoidance, like for example blur, darkness, netherwalk, and the mobility that it has. I don't find it very fun to play, but a good alternative to that is being a warrior, being something that is really satisfying to play. Between having two specs that are DPS, like having Demon only has one spec, you have two specs that are vastly different between Arms and Fury. And I find the hero taunts also very flavorful. I think Colossus is very flavorful. Slayer is more of a utilitarian, more of a, you're going to be always have a situation where Slayer is going to be quite useful. And for example, if you're playing Fury Warrior, you would be playing Mountain Thane or Slayer. Mountain Thane, which is a more flavorful hero taunt, and Slayer being like more of a utilitarian, like I said, like Arms Warrior, where you have more occasions to feel like Slayer is going to be quite useful outside of the damage. I think the damage is not that good, not that great, I would say, except for Blade Storm. But I really like the fantasy of a warrior. If you like Warriors of Light and you put like some music behind and you want to be like a Templar or a Herald of the Sun and you want to be throwing Hammer of Justice, Hammer of Wraths, Final Verdicts, Judgments, you have multiple things that are going to appeal to Retribution Paladin, and I think the gameplay is also quite good. It has been evolving into something that is actually very interesting, and it has a lot of facets. The only thing I kind of don't really like about Retribution Paladin these days is the off healing not being that significant. I find it a bit short-sighted from Blizzard to eliminate any aspect of being able to off heal your targets. I like the days where Retribution Paladin was actually a very viable double DPS spec, but right now you could still do that, especially in War Within. I think there is a lot of like occasions where you could do that, but I think as a whole, Retribution Paladin is something that you could go for if you're like looking for a melee. There is also like the DKs. I think fantasy wise, it has been like I think the best spec in class out there. Like Frost DK, Unholy DK, very flavorful specs. Although Frost DK is more of a gimmick these days, but it has been changed in War Within, which you have multiple paths to go for, multiple builds to play. I think there will be a lot of things that you can explore with Frost Decay, and with also the two hero taunts with Deathbringer and Ride of the Apocalypse, a lot of flavor with it, a lot of design choices that are actually very spot on, and it just like needs a bit of tuning here and there if it is going to be very good or very bad. But in my eyes, it's never going to be very bad because of the design that they actually choose about like Deathbringer and Ride of the Apocalypse. The same for Unholy Decay, with Sun Lane also being interesting to play. I tested it in PvP and War Within. It looks fun to play, although again the balancing will always be depending on the final build. But if it stays like this, I could be seeing myself playing Unholy Decay with like Sun Lane as well, or Ride of the Apocalypse. So you have a lot of like things that you have to think whenever you're going for a melee main, for example. And I could do the same exercise for ranged. I could do the same exercise for healers. But as a whole, what I suggest you guys is a lot of people are like asking me, what spec should I play in War Within? What do you think is going to be good in War Within? And that is something I could respond right now to you. But at the end of the day, you're going to play the spec mostly whenever you're going to go online and you want to relax on your spec, you want to have fun with your spec, you want to progress with your spec, you want to improve with your spec. And overall, what I would always suggest is play what you like, or if you don't know what you're going to like, at least play what you seem is going to be quite awesome, like looking like even transmogs. If you're thinking about a DK, the tier sets are really awesome. For example, warriors as well. I think Retribution Paladin, you have great transmogs. You could feel like you're playing a Paladin, you're playing a Retribution Paladin, you have a lot of fun with it. And for example, you could also say, look, I only love like the aesthetic, so I don't want to play Evoker. Like that's my example. I don't want to play Evoker. Although I know that Devastation Evoker is very strong, I am not capable of playing it because I don't like the aesthetic of it. I already said that multiple times throughout the videos, right? So that's something you should always look if you're choosing a main or alt even to play, especially for next expansion. If you want to level a character, if you want to spend time to train already, to look about builds, about War Within, all the things are going to change still. So that's why I'm not going to do build videos right now. But I think it's giving you a lot more hype, a lot more motivation if you love the character as a whole. That's why for me it's very hard to love windwalkers. I don't really like to punch. I like to have like a big sword where I can like slash people. Or if I like play a caster, I want to have like very bombastic spells which are going to make me feel good. Like every time I'm playing PvP, I'm always imagining myself like in a montage video, right? Like if you're I was little, I watched like Swifties on my tablet, for example. I watched Drake Dog, I watched Vertner, I watched multiple people doing PvP videos, and it actually hyped me up. Like that was also the reason why I played PvP back in the day. I love the feeling of PvP, and I wanted to be like them, kinda. Although right now, since I play PvP and I'm also a bit more mature, I also know that PvP videos and montage videos are not really the equal of skill because, again, it's more fun to see bigger crits, and those happen on like people that have no gear or don't know how to press defensives. So obviously, you're going to see that the montage video is not going to be always equal to what is actually going on the game, but it is motivational. It is also very fun. And thinking about like a music in my head while I'm doing a chaos build as a destruction warlock is actually very fun and very satisfying. And that's something I love to imagine myself whenever I'm playing. Because again, it's a game and you want to have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, why are you playing? So for me, it's always going to be the question of what do you imagine yourself playing? And for example, right now I'm going to give you a way like the things that I'm going to play in War Within, or at least the things I think I'm going to play in War Within. So basically, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. I'm thinking about, do I really want to specialize myself in, for example, melees or in ranged, or do I want to specialize myself into specific things? Do I want to play specs based on the lore? Do I want to be playing specs based on the channel views, for example? Because not every single spec or class is equal to what can be done on YouTube. Do I want to play specs based on my fun? So it's very difficult. And what I do is always like whenever I'm working or whenever I'm like having a off moment, I would say, like a break, I would be taking a sheet of paper and write all the classes and write all the positives and negatives of that class or that spec. And frankly speaking, melee wise, I always feel like warriors are always going to be a very safe bet for myself. Always have fun with warrior. I think warrior has been also one of the classes that is the most represented classes in the history of World of Warcraft. Melee wise, you will always have a lot of easiness to make comps with it because it goes with everything. You can even play double warrior if you want to. It will probably work in threes. It will not be like meta or it's not going to be like efficient, but you could make it work. While other specs like double enhancement shaman is never going to work in PvP, for example. So um, yeah, warrior is something I'm looking forward to War Within. If I'm going to main it, is probably not really a question. I think I'm going to do that. Is it going to be like long term? I actually don't know. It really depends on like the design changes on different specs. But if I have to choose like a melee right now, it would be Arms Warrior or Fury Warriors. I think they're very well made currently, design wise, implementation wise. It does feel like you're playing a warrior. It does feel like it is better than Dragonflight. It does feel like it's different as well. So that's why I'm looking forward to that. I would say if I'm looking for a second melee, I would probably go for Enhancement Shaman because I really love the fantasy of Enhancement Shaman. It's also not really a primary DPS, it is a support DPS, so it's a different role than Warrior. Often, either you choose like all the specs between the same kind of role, like primary DPS. If you play Warrior, likelihood is that you're going to be being quite good on DH as well, and quite good on, for example, unholy DK. Those three are primary DPS, for example. And if you're playing like a support DPS, like for example enhancement shaman, generally you're going to be quite good on retribution paladin, for example. So I like enhancement shaman, I like the lore, I like the feeling. Personally, totemic is not going to be that awesome, but I do like Stormbringer. I just, unfortunately, the implementation is not always correct, so it means it is filled with bugs still. If they kind of fix those bugs, I think there is maybe a way out for enhancement shaman. But I'm kind of like on the fence. I want to main that, but every time I'm playing enhancement shaman, especially on retail, I get like the unlikeliness of me being like able to like spam games with it. You always are faced with like BS with enhancement shaman. It feels like you cannot really play haste anymore because it lacks damage, because they made mastery the end all by all for enhancement shaman. So if you're not running mastery, you're going to deal 0 damage. Your storm strike is currently just a filler or like just a maelstrom generator and not really like something that is doing damage, which unfortunately I prefer it whenever it does damage. So that's unfortunate. Like I see Storm Strike as something that is the equivalent of Mortal Strike for Arnswire. Storm Strike has always been like the biggest spell for Enhancement Shaman since like Classic, since also TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm right now, especially if you're playing Shaman right now in Cataclysm, I think you are like reading the rude awakening between retail and Cataclysm. But I have hope. I have hope that the devs are actually going to be waking up and saying, look, Enhancement Shaman should feel different compared to what we have right now. So that's why I might play it, I might main it. I'm very scared of it. Like many enhancement shamans, I think we are all waiting for a real balancing round, a real design round. I would say Frost Decay is also a high contender for me. I think Frost Decay going with all the changes, with all it's gonna happen with Frost Decay, it's going to be very interesting to play around. So with all the things that I said, you would think I am a melee main, but historically, I would say even like rating wise, whenever I was doing well in arenas or in RBGs, I was playing casters. I love warlocks. I love even like elemental shaman. I love bounce druids. I love mages. I love like casters or even hunters in general. I do play hunter a lot, a lot, a lot. And my second character was a hunter in classic. So for me, it's very difficult to like stop myself at playing at least 5 character. I will try to play as many as I can, but my time is still limited. I am not a full-time content creator, and I think it's not happening anytime soon because of that I need to like duplicate my views and having like times 3 or times 4 my views and actually be a lot better than that. But and even then, I would say that it would be like a part-time content creator, I would say. But right now, Hunter is doing very well, and it's difficult for me. So if I have to choose 5, I'm going to say like quickfire. I might make a video a bit more in depth on the choices and why, but I would say warrior, shaman, DK, and I would say like 2 casters like warlock and hunter would be my 2 choices. And if I have to choose about a healer, it would be druid. Um, Again, you might say like why warlock, why hunter, why druid for restoration druid, for example. I would make a video for that with more explanation, with maybe a bit more examples in games. But I think those 3, like those 6 classes are going to be very interesting. Shaman is probably the biggest interrogation, I would say, that I have, a question mark, because it has currently no changes. Like I think the only change that we had since Dragonflight till now is at least just healing stream totem, I think healing stream totem or healing tide. I don't know. Like it was like a very small change. It had like a raid component with it, and having more heals while you are in dungeons and PvP. So I think Shaman is really going to be hit or miss. If it's going to be a miss, I'm going to probably, with a heartache, say no to Enhancement Shaman. If they do make changes into a positive way, I'm not even saying like balancing, I think really design, because balancing will always be something that is going to be very volatile. But if they make changes that would appeal to me, like something that is very fun and very satisfying, I think then I will say, look, I'm going to go hard on enhancement shaman or even elemental shaman. But right now, there's multiple things I think should be like fixed. I think all those 2 pointers should be like 1 pointers. I think a lot of the talents should be going up. I think ascendance should be in the middle. I think ascendance should be either something that is very easy to access, or should be baseline, or should be removed completely from the game. I think having ascendance on your spec tree and not wanting to pick ascendance because it is like unreliable, I think it's bullshit. That's my take on it. Feral spirits I think should be like also a bit higher in my opinion. Like feral spirits is literally what enhancement shaman always has been since Wrath of the Lich King. So again, why is it like that low on the trees? It should not ever be an option not taking feral spirits. But right now you take feral spirits because this is the easiest thing you can take, and you have a lot of access to the middle tree. So why is it that low? Primordial Wave I think should be gone in for enhancement shaman. I think it's more of an elemental shaman kind of thing, or go into the class tree because all three specs utilize Primordial Wave to a certain extent. So make it a class tree talent. I think it would be nice. Replace it. I think elemental blast should also go into the class tree. I think Doomans should be buffed or removed, one or the other. I think this is a pitiful CD. Even in PvE, it's a pitiful CD. I think Lava Lash should go up. I think Storm Strike should be baseline. I think a lot of stuff need to be changed. So we'll have to see if they're going to do that. And I think for Elemental Shaman, I think in general, there are multiple things that needs to be changed as well. So I'm going to say that right now, I might make a separate video about it, to be talking a bit more in depth. But I already did it for enhancement shaman. I think for the shaman class, there's a lot of stuff that can be talked about and changed, but we'll have to see. I think PvE wise, they're doing okay. I think enhancement shaman on the PTR, but I think again balancing is such a volatile thing. If you're like going based on numbers, you will change nothing. But I think enhancement shaman is in shambles. Restoration shaman is going to be still good enough to be played, but there's still a lot of things to discuss about it. So again, thank you for watching this video. Really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and we will catch each other probably very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.